Being being a comedian is not like I think a lot of people think it sounds fun and a lot of people think it's like, oh, this is cool. But really, it's fucking weird. Like, it's weird and like, I think it's really interesting from like a healing perspective because being a comedian and going on stage and wanting to make people laugh requires a sense of like a need for validation. But when you're healing, it's like, oh, I like myself. Like, I don't really care if you laugh or not. But then you sort of have to be an entertainer and you do have to care if they laugh or not. So that's been a really weird sort of dichotomy that I've been dealing with. Like, okay, I've been healing. I'm not seeking validation from others. I'm doing all these things. But I also really enjoy just making people laugh. And I also like being goofy. But when they don't, I do get these like feelings of like, oh, do you not like me? But you have to remember that it's not personal. And you have to remember that it's just one of those things where it's like, I like myself. It challenges you in your healing process a lot. And it keeps you accountable for yourself, for sure. But it's also just, it teaches you, like for me, I've been doing this since I was little. I've been holding a crowd at my grandma's, table when we would have Thanksgiving or wherever it might be. And it's just something I truly love. And, it's been a journey. I've only been doing it for about 1.5 years now. I've learned a lot. There's been a lot of ups. There's been a lot of downs, like a lot of downs. But overall, it's been beautiful, and I can't wait to keep going.
Oh, I absolutely love like what you were saying though too, that as you're doing it, you're also struggling with the duality of it. Yes. And what I think about, I was watching your videos earlier is, what does it take to like get on a stage and put yourself in a situation where you're in front of people and you want people to like your stuff, but then you're kind of like, no, but I'm here anyway. I showed up for myself. Like, yeah, who cares? But, for someone being on a stage, that requires a certain amount of like, I don't know what the word is for it, but like not just anyone gets up on a stage. So like I feel like you have to like have something within you that's just like, this is for me and I'm gonna follow it and I don't care, like what people have to say about me. And especially like as funny that's so redundant. I'm like, as funny as comedy can be. What I was trying to say.
Some comedy is not always funny.
Some is not. Okay, yeah, I guess. But what I was trying to say is like the topic of comedy is meant to make people laugh, right? To have a good time. But we have to sometimes think about like what gets you to that place, right? Because I know, for example, a topic that you wanted to talk about was grief. And I know a lot of times people do use comedy as a way to, I don't know if it's always necessarily avoid or cope with also or heal with comedy. So that's something else where we think about when you're standing on a stage, what is the journey that got you to that stage?
So, I mean, so many things. And I think you could argue that being on stage or I love public speaking, period. I don't care if I'm trying to be funny. I don't care if I'm delivering something, TED Talks out. I really genuinely love public speaking. And a part of me is like, oh, it's just because like I'm a teacher. Like, I'd love to sit here and lie and be like, I'm a teacher and I'm like really, really well-rounded and blah, blah, blah. But the reality is like, when I was younger, I wanted attention. And I was like one of like 12 kids in a little Mexican household just trying to like differentiate myself.
Okay.
I'm also like the
That's
oldest.
real. You're real for that though. For saying that. Yeah.
I'm also the oldest of all of those kids. I was like the firstborn grandchild. So I was kind of put like on a weird pedestal, but then it was also like a very strict, you have to perform and you have to do well for the family name and all that stuff. So part of it does come from trauma. Part of it does come from like, I need to be recognized. I need to be validated. I need to put myself out there to sort of get this little fix that I'm looking for. But again, as I go through this healing, it's more so like, no, this is just something I really love to do. Like I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's kind of like a roller coaster ride. To sit here and tell you that I don't get nervous before I hit the stage would be a bold-faced lie. Like my heart's pounding. Usually I have to have a beer. Like I'll be shaking. Like I'm a mess. I'm a mess. And then as soon as you get on stage, something just kind of clicks. Like it's just like there's sort of like this mellowness, and sometimes it's easier than others, but I've really learned to love it as almost like an adrenaline thing. And also like like you were saying, a lot of people turn to comedy for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes it's escapism and you just want to pretend like nothing exists. You want to get your mind off things. Sometimes it's to relate to someone. You know, a lot of times some of the best comedy or some of the biggest laughs you'll get is when you say something that nobody else wants to say out loud, or you say something that you just know other people, like there's a tension in the room. Like a lot of times if a show is going a weird way, you'll see the comedians just go up there and be like, what's going on? And it just huge laugh because everyone feels this like tension and everyone thinks they're alone in it. And when you realize you're not, I think that comedy provides that sort of relief, and it provides like a way to challenge yourself and to hold yourself accountable. And, you know, sometimes, again, some of the best laughs come at the expense of like, oh, I shouldn't be thinking that way, but I'm glad somebody else is, you know, so I think it's just one of those things where I've learned to love it for what I can provide to people. It's something that I like provided to myself. I consume a lot of comedy. You know, you make a lot of connections in the community itself. And, you know, even outside of it, like just being able, I had one of my most powerful moments, or one of the moments that like I'll never forget is, you know, going on stage and I got into the game kind of late because I didn't see anyone like me. Like I was like, you know, there was Angela Johnson or whatever, but I was like, it's a different type of comedy. And like, I didn't really see anyone doing the style I did, or other than men. Like I saw a lot of men doing it, but then I was like, I would even say shit like, women aren't that funny, like stupid ass shit. Like I was like, why did I ever say that? But it's because I never saw someone who like made me laugh the way a man would. Or looked like me until Ali Wong came out, which was only a few years ago, her first one. And I was just like, oh, that's I could do that. Like, that's what I want to do. So then I started kind of getting into it and getting into comedy a little more. But recently I was on stage at a show and, you know, do my little set, did well, get off stage, go to the green room in the back. And the way this club is set up, when you walk out of the little club area and go to the restroom, you pass the green room, and our door was open, and a young woman passed by, and then she like stopped, reversed, and she was like, I'm so sorry, can I talk to you? And I was like, yeah, sure. I thought I offended. I was like, oh my God, it's going to be, I didn't like this joke. I didn't like that joke. And she's like, I just want to shake your hand. Like, I've been wanting to do this for so long, but I didn't see anyone like me. Like, I didn't hear anyone like me. And she's like, you've been a real inspiration. And I was just like, I don't even get paid for this. Like, really? That was just such a big moment for me that felt so validating and stuff like that. It's like, I think that sort of validation is appropriate. And I think I can take that in like, oh, okay, like I'm that person for someone else, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's definite. There's still that validation little thing, you know, feels good.
We all need it though.
Yeah, exactly.
We all need it. Yeah, hell yeah.
But
We
not
all
as toxic.
want it.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be toxic, but
Right,
yes,
right.
of course. Yes, we all need validation and support, and for people to tell us like, hey, I see what you're doing, because you're putting yourself out there, and to have someone say, hey, you inspired me, like that is what we all need at the end of the day.
It feels
you know?
good. Yeah. And just letting, you know, I remember that moment for me. Like, I remember that moment where it clicked and I was like, damn. And whether she does something with it or not, it's nice to know, like, oh, I did that for someone else.
Yes.
Like that's something where it's like, I could get on board with that all day.
Yeah, and something else like you said when you were just talking was that you have to speak your truth and say stuff that other people aren't willing to say. And I think that also, like, you gotta own that, and that is so powerful because there are so many things that people will never say.
Oh, yeah.
And that is something that is so badass when you own it, because, you know, a lot of times in Latino culture, for example, like there is that culture of you sweep everything under the rug.
Oh, yeah, girl.
Everything goes under the rug, right? So with comedy, I could definitely see how, you know, you're being the person who is breaking that pattern, breaking a generational trauma, breaking all of that, because you're willing to say it. And you're going to have fun saying it, and you can turn it into a joke.
100%. And that's how I originally kind of got started with my journey. And I mean, this was way back when, like I was like 7 or 8 years old and I was just a goofball. Like I was always, but you know, Latino culture, especially with like young women, like little girls, it's always like, be a good girl. You know, you sit with your legs crossed, you wear your little dresses, you have your hair down, you have your earrings. Like, you know, you're supposed to be a doll. Like you're supposed to sit and look pretty and do well.
You're supposed to be small.
Right.
Like,
100%.
don't take up space. Don't take up a stage. That's
unless it's the kitchen and
message.
you're cooking,
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, that's your stage. That's
exactly
so true. Yeah.
So, and there was, and listen, I love Latino culture. I love the community. I'll even go as far as to say, like, I love knowing how to cook and being able to cook like that dynamic. And I do see a lot of it trying to be broken and expanding. And I'm really proud of us as a people. But there's some thick stuff there that's like, damn, like it's heavy, you know? And so when I was like 7 or 8 years old, there was always the when we go to grandma's house, well, I lived at my grandma's house, but when the cousins would come over and everyone there, my grandma had a big table called the adult table. So that's where all the adults sat when it was like Christmas time, Thanksgiving. We'd always get together for everyone's birthday, everyone come over, cake and pizza, whatever it might be. And that was, you know, when the kids would go play, I would always just kind of sneak over and like listen to the adults, and I would be sitting there, and then I would like interject a little bit here and there, and they'd start laughing, and then I would start to tell stories. Like I would just be like, oh yeah, my mom did this, and talking shit really. Like I'd be sitting there like, and then she said it and acting it out, and I would have them rolling, dude, like dying on the floor laughing. And I did that up until, I mean, forever. To the point where my grandpa used to call me over and he'd be like, Mija, come tell us a story. And I'd be like, okay, I like run over there.
I love that.
Yeah.
So you've always been a storyteller. Yeah.
But it was my way of being able to sort of vent and cope with like, you know, some unfairness with like, you know, my mom and my tias or whatever I saw in the family that was an injustice. It was my way to be able to vocalize it and let them know without being offensive or hurting them. Because I know those conversations can be difficult. Not much change because I think they just thought like, like she's playing, whatever. But it was a release for me. And there was one time where my tios were visiting from Guadalajara. And my grandpa called me over to the table, and my grandma was like, oh, like Amanda's so good at this. She knows how to hold a crowd. She'll stop for the laugh, like this, that, and the other. And at this point I was like 12 or 14. And at this point I didn't recognize it as like comedy or anything. I would watch a lot of comedy. I would love it. I would watch a lot of Comic View and Comedy Central, but I just never, again, like I never saw myself there. And my tío was like, oh, does she know this bit or that bit? Because, you know, in Mexico, up until recently, it was a lot of like bits, like people, El Chavo del Ocho, or, you know, Cantinflas, like just doing little things like that, where it was just like more of a presentation of like a story. And then my grandpa said, he's like, no, it's a little bit different here. Se llama stand-up comedy. And that was the first time I heard it. And even then I was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't think like I'm a comedian. It wasn't until like the last couple of years that I was like, you know what? I think I might be a comedian.
Ooh, so what do you think made you over the past couple of years decide this is what I'm gonna do? Like, what were you doing before that, and what pushed you to this, like, finally, like, going down this path?
You know, so again, I was always entertained, even with my friends. Like when we would go out and we'd, you know, go out for drinks and we'd be dancing. My favorite part of the night was either dinner before or the eating drunk food after. You know what I mean? Because that's when I would get to like make them laugh and run around and be like a clown or whatever. So that was definitely part of my journey. But I always felt like, oh, I'm not on stage funny. I'm like in context funny, like amongst my friends when we're talking shit, or if like you know me, you kind of get the idea. But if I jump on stage, like I'm not going to know how to handle that kind of thing. So I never really entertained the idea of stand-up comedy again. And then a few years ago, my grandpa passed away, and that was obviously very difficult for me. It was one of the first people that, you know, I lost that was of significance to me. Like, it was just like, oh my God. And, you know, that'll do some stuff to you, and that'll have you thinking about life and thinking about death and reconsidering. And I'm not a religious person, but I started to realize, like, you know what? Like, everyone is equal in the sense that they all get a lifetime. Like, everyone gets one lifetime. You have to live it. You have to do what you want to do. Like, who gives a fuck? Yeah. If, you know, like, if you do or don't do something. Like, I could easily say, like, oh, I'll never do stand-up comedy and it won't matter. I could do something else. But it's just like, what if I do it? What if I do it? Yeah. What's going to happen? You know? It could go really well. It could go really bad. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Oh, we
Oh
have
no, I
another
think I lost you
disappearance.
again. Oh,
No,
at
I
least we
know.
didn't lose audio.
Oh no. This is, you got it? We're good?
Yes, got you.
Okay, we're good. Go ahead.
So, yeah, I'm all grandpa. No, I'm playing.
Oh no. We're like, is that what it
I'm
is? Are we trying to get a message
right?
here from both
I'm
of our
not gonna get
grandpas?
it, right? So yeah, it just became a thing of like, what if? And then I started going to, and again, I was kind of like, oh, who knows if I could do it. So I just started going to open mics, and I went to open mics, girl, for like almost 2 years just to go watch every Tuesday or every whatever day it was. And I would go support the local scene. And I started to make friends with some of the comedians and just, like, oh, can we grab lunch and talk about like whatever. Some of them would, some of them wouldn't. I think a lot of them thought I was just like a little groupie that was just like, can I take you to lunch? And I'm like, no, I really want to do this. Like, I want to know what this is about. So that's what I did. And then I saw the Ali Wong special, and it just kind of started to click for me. And then one day I'm like, okay, I'm signing up today. Like, this is it.
Okay.
And then,
so you were going for those 2 years, but you hadn't stood up yet and like done it.
no,
Oh, okay.
I hadn't done it. I was just hanging out and taking in the scene. And it's something, if people are interested in getting into stand-up comedy, it's something I recommend. Like, if you're like, I think a lot of people get really in their head about the process and like, oh, like, I don't, like, what if I don't get any laughs? Most people don't get any laughs their first time, or if they do, it's because they're just in the moment and they're present, or it's because they, are storytellers and they make like a story with a punchline. But if you go and you watch people do it, you'll also notice that they do the same jokes over and over. And sometimes they change one word, sometimes they change a line, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes they'll say it the exact same, and the first night you see them, they'll get roaring laughter, just applause. And then the next time you see them, dead silent. So you start to realize like, oh, this isn't about me. This is about my reaction. Because you might get dead silent and then you riff something, you say one thing that kind of just saves you, and then get roaring laughter again. So it's all about being present. It's all about being confident. It's all about just being in that moment and able to react. But also, being a little crazy, like being like, I want to go put myself in this position to be, on stage, not knowing how it's gonna go.
I don't know, to some degree, like I would say like you're being really vulnerable also. Yeah, like putting yourself there and just saying, you know what, this is me, and I'm gonna share you a little piece of me and see if you like it or not, know. So standing there, yeah, I definitely can see where, and I've been saying this a lot lately, it's like vulnerability is your biggest act of courage, especially when you own it. Right. And being a comedian and standing there and in your truth and also making people laugh and bringing them joy. Like, I truthfully think it's so freaking awesome. Like, it's so cool. And fun. Like you said, you didn't see a lot of people that were like you, and now you're being that person. So other people seeing you do it, then they're going to be like, you know what, I can do it too.
It could be discouraging, especially as like a woman. It could be a little discouraging, and you do feel kind of like, why don't they like me? It's just competitive. It's incredibly competitive. And you just have to realize like everyone's sort of out for themselves, while also you have to be really good at your networking. But I also think comedians get this really bad rap of like, oh, like you have to be really sad and fucked up, and they're just like, messed up people that just, and 100, I'm not going to sit here and tell you there's not a bunch of crazies in the scene, because there is, like 100% there is. But I also think that comedians should get a lot more credit, because it's like, in order to go up there and share something that hurt you, or in order to go up there and, even if you're looking for like that validation, even if you're trying to get that feeling of like, laugh at me so that I feel like 100%, you still have to work through things enough in order to deliver them to be funny. Because I'll tell you right now, it's not funny if you're not being honest. If you're kind of just like bullshitting through and you're just like, and then I did a bunch of drugs. It's like, okay. But if you kind of work through and you're like, oh, I went through this thing and then this was shitty, and can you believe I did this? Like, a lot, you'll get like people chuckling and laughing with you and feeling like a connection. That's really what comedy is about. Like you were saying earlier, like people need to feel connected to you. They need to feel connected to your story. Not everyone's going to, but there is an audience for everyone.
Let's talk about that topic for a moment, because I know that's something that was actually what called me to you, was you saying like laughter as a medicine, comedy as medicine. For you, what does that mean?
like laughter is the best medicine. And I don't think you realize how important laughter is in our life. There's actually studies recently I've been reading up on, in the last few years, they've been doing studies on using laughter as medicine. And you'll know, I don't know if you're into like mantras or healing processes or meditations.
Yeah,
There's
100%.
some, right? And there's some where it's just like, they'll tell you like, pretend like you're laughing. And then you do
I'm
start
gonna
laughing.
try that later.
Oh,
like,
girl, it's
I
like
will.
Yeah,
try it.
if you're ever sad or if you're ever feeling like a little off, just be like, ha, 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 ha. And then you'll just, even like now, like you'll kind of get into this weird rhythm where you're like, what the fuck am I doing? And then you start laughing because it's almost like an absurdity, but it makes you feel better. It's like a release.
That connects to like that whole statement of like your mind doesn't know what's real or what isn't. So if you make yourself laugh, it's gonna think something is happening for you to laugh. So you'll get the benite from it. So I could definitely see that working.
100%. Yeah. And they've been using it in a lot of like pain tolerance, in like remembering like people that are suffering from dementia, or like a lot of laughter therapy is coming through and helping with that. I mean, like I said, I was going through a really rough week last week. I was just going through it bad. And one of the things that started to bring me out of it was I was in the car and it was dark and I was driving I was driving down my street and a car was approaching, but the way the headlights were set up, it looked like it had like just like wonky eyes. Like it just looked like weird. And I don't know if I was just sleep deprived or just like my eyes were just all puffy. But I just started laughing so hard. Like I just like giggling, giddy. I was like, that looks hilarious. And so
it's because like you're finding literally like the most smallest reason to laugh and be happy. But that is something that a lot of us need to take from your book, literally, because when we get too serious about everything, there's up to a certain point that actually hurts us. Because, sometimes we have to just freaking laugh and make jokes of stuff and be present and laugh at the little things because we have to appreciate the little things. Like you said, we only have this one lifetime, so let's be goofy. Let's have fun, Not everything has to be like super dark and super, I don't know. Like, I get it, dude. This journey is a roller coaster. There's ups and there's downs, and that's what my whole journey has been about, like showcasing that. But for example, you being here and let's talking about comedy and us bringing like this lighter note is an uproar, So to remind people listening, like, have fun with it. You can laugh at headlights that look goofy. For example, one time, like, I got googly eyes and I put them on the front of my car for Halloween, and I was like, that's freaking hilarious.
It's hilarious.
Why? I don't know, because it made me happy. So we have to do stuff because it makes us happy. Yeah, it's not hurting anyone. No.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, and I'll tell you, like, when my grandpa passed, I had a really weird moment, and this is where laughter as medicine was just one of those things where I'm like, you can't ignore it. There was this moment. It doesn't sound funny. You're gonna be like, that's really morbid. But there was this moment where it was kind of like it was sort of a relief when he passed, because it was a battle for like a long time. He had a lot of issues with his lungs. He was an avid smoker. So he was in and out of the hospital quite a bit. We knew this one was probably his last time. And they're like, hey, we're going to take Grandpa off the respirator. And so any minute now, like, you guys can come in and see him. We all took that as, hey, Grandpa's going to die. And so we were all obviously in the waiting room, his family, our family, cousin, sister, and it had been days, and we're just like, we don't even have tears to cry anymore. And so they do it, and then we're all sitting out there, we're all just decimated, and then they come out in the cheeriest, happiest voice, and they're like, okay, Grandpa's ready if you want to see him, like, who wants to talk to Grandpa? And we're all just like, what the fuck, like, what do you mean, like, what are you talking about? I thought Grandpa died. And so at this point, me and my cousin were like, oh my god, I'm exhausted, like, we need to go to the taco shop, like, we're gonna go. So me and her kind of take off to just get a little bit of relief, and we're dead quiet in the car. I mean, it's just, you could hear a pin drop on the carpet. Like, that's how quiet it is. And I think maybe, I don't even remember if we had music on or not, but we're just numb driving to the taco shop. We get there, we order our food separately. We still haven't said a word to each other. We sit down, we still don't say anything to each other. And then they call us to get our order. So we grab our burritos. And then she just quietly is like, I thought Grandpa was dead. And we just start laughing while crying and eating burritos. And I just imagine like this like moment, like this is a taco shop full of people, middle of the day, beautiful sunny day. I just imagine people like, these women are insane. Like they're crying, eating burritos and laughing. And it was this release of like, I'm so glad you said that because there was so much tension built. And if you look at the best comedians, they'll tell you a story and they'll build tension and they'll build this like, oh, this happened and this happened and this hurt and this hurt. And then there's this release and this euphoria of like, oh my God, like it worked out, or there was some sort of peace, or there was some sort of resolution. And I think obviously my grandpa was still alive and we lost him a couple days later, and that was difficult. But even at the funeral, I was able to find a laugh and I was able to release that tension, even if it was briefly. And sometimes you even feel guilty doing it because you're just like, I don't want to be happy right now. Yeah. But it's necessary. Like our bodies need it. They'll look for it anywhere they can find it. And I think that's why, you know, you always hear people saying like, oh, you can't do comedy, or you can't say anything. That's been true for all of time. It's because comedy is here to challenge you to accept things radically. It's here to make you look at yourself and take accountability. It's here. Comedy is very healing, more than people think, because I think it's got this like this idea of like, oh, it's offensive. And yeah, it can be offensive. Yes. And I'm not condoning all comedy, but someone finds something in someone's presence comforting.
Yeah. And you know what though? Like that's something that I at least definitely can resonate to, because, you know, just the other day I was having a soul talk with someone that also struggles with the same disorder that I have. And we were laughing at ourselves at how messed up and how like ridiculous our anxiety was during the hardest time. But in the grand story of stuff, were we laughing back at that point? Hell no. But now we're here laughing, and there's so much power in that, and being able to laugh at yourself too. Right. And being like, you know what? I can laugh at myself now because I know what that was like, and I'm not there anymore. And you know what? It's okay, because the laughing about it is healing, because now I look at that and say, you know what? I didn't know any better, and that's okay, right? Yeah. But now it's a funny story to tell. Right. You know? It's
very humbling, and it does allow you to take a step back and maybe apologize to someone that you need to apologize to, or maybe you say, hey, I was wrong. Like, I don't, you know, whatever your journey is with that, like, it's also very humbling. Those roast battles, girl, let me tell you, there's been times.
Yeah. Anyone that's listening, you should go watch Lucey's video. I watched it and I was like, oh, who am I about to talk to right now?
I know. I feel so bad. I feel like, God.
No. It's just part of, like, it's a part of your journey of being a comedian. Right, but tell us about it. What are these, like, roast battles for anyone who's listening who doesn't know?
The original is the roast battle, which comes out of the Comedy Store in Hollywood. Brian Moses runs it with, oh gosh, I'm forgetting his name now, and he's kind of the more famous of the two. I hate to admit. Jeff Ross. So Jeff Ross, I'm sure you've seen it with like they've put it on Netflix quite a bit when they did like the Netflix festival. So Jeff and Brian run it. They're sort of like the originals, but you have all these little. I mean, they've always had kind of like little roast battles or shooting shit or whatever it might be. And I never, if you are a comedian and you are interested in them, they're so good for your joke writing skills. It's made me such a better writer. Like because you have to get to the point and you have to get a punchline in. You have to be clever. You have to be smart. And the reality is you don't really want to hurt the other person. It's meant to be out of love. Like, hey, you know, there's a lot of times where I'll ask them like, hey, is there anything I'm going to stay away from? I'm the type of person where I'm like, fucking whatever. You can say whatever you want. You can talk about me, anything, like whatever you want to say. I'm not going to be too picky about it. But there's been times where someone has said something and I'm like, oh, that one didn't feel good.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, and this is the thing though. I don't know. No, I wouldn't know this, but you know, I'm a highly sensitive person. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I definitely am. And even me just watching the video, I was like, ouch.
They
And that's like
can.
it's something that like I don't resonate necessarily personally with the jokes, but I do think about it. I'm like, would I have the guts to like get up on a stage and roast someone, even though
Yeah.
everyone knows it's for fun? But part of me, even through this conversation, I'm like, you know what? Maybe just for a once in a lifetime kind of like experiment, yeah, I'd want to try it because you have to work through your inner like fear
Oh
also
yeah.
because for me it's like ooh like what are someone gonna say to me and then how am I gonna make them feel because when you're highly sensitive you're so worried about
Yep.
also not just how you feel but everyone else. You don't want to
Mm-hmm.
make anyone upset, you don't want to make anyone like
Right.
hurt, nothing like that. So definitely a roast battle is an interesting
Yeah.
environment. But yeah, the video they were entertaining though. I was watching them like I
I
was laughing but I did feel the
I
discomfort.
I
So
know. There's been some where I won't even post it. Like when I most recently posted, where I tell the girl looks like the Hanson brother. That one, my last joke on that, I was like, why did I say that? Like, there's been a couple where it's like, I did not want to say that to you. And we, both those girls that I've had, all three of the girls I've roast with, super cool with still. We give each other hugs at the end. We give each other fist bumps, like all that stuff. There's no bad blood. But there is a moment where you're like, there's a couple things going on. So one, you have to have radical self-love. Like you just have to. You have to be
oh
like,
yeah.
hey, I like myself and whatever you say is not going to hurt me. And even the jokes that people will say, like, whatever it might be that I'm like, oh, that one got me good. It's also one of those things where I'm like, fuck, that was funny, dude.
Yeah,
Like,
you have to give them the props for it too. Yeah.
100%, 100%. So there is things where it's like you have to have that radical self-love, or you have to at least like yourself enough to be willing to let someone say some stuff about you. And two, I have anxiety myself, and one of the things that I'm really hard on myself on is just like not being in the moment. So I'm always like the future. Like I'm like, what's going to happen? What are they going to say? I'm highly curious. I just want to know. I want to plan. I have some control issues, which was something I was working through when I was saying I was having a really hard week. And I didn't realize that I was already kind of like those roast battles. I get like sick to my tummy before because I'm like, oh, am I going to hurt their feelings? What are they going to say about me? But it's not so much that I care what they're going to say, and I know that it's all love, so I know they're not going to be hurt. It's more about like, I just want to know. I want to know so I know how to react because I don't want to be caught slipping in front of the audience. Or I want to give them a good show. You know what I mean? Like you have to start to grapple with those things of like, why am I getting, and you'll realize things about yourself, but you'll also have moments where you're really proud. Like I was like, I don't care what they say. I like myself. I'm good. But then I was like, you know what? I think I might have some control issues here that I don't want to admit. So yeah, those roast battles are super interesting. I hated them at first. I'm learning to love them.
I don't know. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I kind of want to watch more later, just because like it's actually fun. Like, it genuinely, I can see where it can be healing and it can be fun, and it's funny to like be able to laugh at stuff that usually is like a no touchy subject in our society. Like, there's certain things that you don't say and that you would never say that to a person,
Right.
But if you're doing it in that manner and it's all jokes, it's a kind of a different story. But I'm kind of thinking to end this podcast, you should roast me.
I can't. I
Oh,
can't.
you can or you can't.
I can't.
I was like, no, you can. I can't. I'm kidding.
You know what? If I can think of something, are we ending now?
Oh, well, yeah, kind of.
I'm like, oh shit.
No, I'm kidding. No, actually, if you come up with one, I definitely am down.
I'll post it.
Post it here. Think about it. Yeah.
When we drop the episode, I'll have like a little roast in there.
All right. I'll take that. Because for a second I was like, oh no, what? I thought the same thing. I'm like, oh my god, what is what is she gonna say? No, but it's okay. I own it. We're all good.
I try to be a little more clever about it. I try to be a little more like, what can I say that's fun for everyone, including that person?
Yeah.
And I think that's how most roasters will look at it. Like, hey, I love this person. I don't want to hurt these. There are some people where it's like, I think they do want to hurt each other's feelings, but that's a whole different story. But more often than not, the roasters are like friends. Like they're like really good friends. Yeah.
But I feel like that would make it more fun too, though. Cause then you know the details and you can have more fun with it. Yeah, so, definitely. If you want to have a little roast for me, I totally will participate. I do want to give people the space to be able to support you and follow you. So what are your social handles so anyone listening can go and follow you?
On both Instagram and TikTok, which are the only things I'm on right now, it's at Lucey Love Comedy. So at Lucey, Lucey. There is an E in there. Underscore love underscore comedy. So that's both TikTok and Instagram. I need to get better about my TikTok. I'm a little better on Instagram, but I've been trying to stay up on both. I perform around San Diego, mostly locally, but I have some future dates where I'll be traveling a little bit more, possibly to Arizona, up to Sacramento. So I'll kind of be around. Hopefully that'll still keep expanding. And yeah, I hope you keep in touch. I really enjoyed this. It was really fun.
I really do think that a lot of people are going to get such a like unique perspective from it. Like it's just a different talk that also makes you think. Like honestly, like I had a really great time. So genuinely, thank you so much for participating. And like I want to laugh at myself too. I'm at the space where I honestly am just, you know what? I'm ready to live my life. I am ready to own every single part of my journey, you know, all of that. Like for like let me give you some material.
You roast yourself more than anyone could ever roast you. That's one thing wrong. And you know what's a word of advice, and what I've started to do, especially now that I do these roast battles, whenever I do have negative self-talk, I act like it's a roast, so I'll laugh at it. Like if I'm talking mean to myself, like I'll be like, oh, that's good. That's a good one.
That's a funny one.
Yeah, like you kind of roast your negative thoughts back, like not you trying to bring me down type shit. So
I love that though. I think anyone listening also, like, y'all should take that tip for sure. Anytime you have a negative thought about yourself, take Lucey's tip and turn it into a roast and have fun with it. I think it'll help for sure.
Yeah. Don't do it out loud because then people are going to think you're like schizo or something. They're going to be like, but you know, just whisper it to yourself. Be like, shut up, bitch.
Yeah. No. Be like, don't do me like that. No,
right.
No. Lucey,
well, thank you again. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. Truly, truly, truly. We're going to stay in touch. We're soul friends now.